So, our next presenter is Mitchell Eismont. He's an assistant professor of graphic design at Central State University. He's an advocate for human rights and currently has work exhibiting in Mexico about the refugee crisis. He teaches his students that words and images are weapons, not for war, but for peace. As a major advocate of Welcome Dayton, I'm particularly excited for this. Please welcome Mitch Eismont. Rock it out.
All right, so through this presentation, I'll document the ways projects have engaged students via graphic design with themselves and the worlds around, helping them to become informed citizens. So I teach at Central State University, which is a historically black college and university, and that has kind of some of its aspects I have to teach slightly different. All right, sorry. We're going to look at two different variations: projects grounded in history, current events, or projects about social political issues. This presentation will include assignments and examples of students' work through community and social engagement projects. The students understand the power of graphic design and start making connections with the worlds around them. This is the World War II bomber project brief. They are going to be a pilot. A B-24 pilot comes to them and they want a logo for the aircraft. They'll have exactly 1 hour and 50 minutes to complete this project. The idea is to make it intimidating and bring up the morale of your crew. So on the left here, you see the fuck bomb. It's basically a skeleton smoking a gigantic bomb. And on the right is the kick the nest and feel the sting. So this project was based off of a book I read, which was Unbroken. The next project is the Christopher Columbus Project. So they're going to research and find a basis for an opinion on Christopher Columbus Day. The project will be 11 by 17, and it will demote or promote Christopher Columbus and his taking over of America. This is a piece by James Victoria that I show them. This piece was designed, he had in mind the smallpox infestation, not just Columbus, but the many other of the colonization of America brought to. So this was distributed throughout New York City. This is one of my students' projects here. And my students' response is, and keep in mind, they only had an hour and a half to create these projects. And they are really rough concepts. I'm all of these things, but it doesn't matter because one day I will be praised for things that wasn't mine. So you see genocide and several other things. Here's two more of these projects. Of course, on the left, you see Columbus celebrating his birthday with a bunch of genocide happening down below. And on the right, I think everyone can make the connection there. Do you know what Christopher Columbus did? And they also had the opportunity to promote Columbus if they wanted to. I wasn't giving them a slanted view of that. The hitchhiking assignment you'll see here in a second, it was based off a book, The Cheese Monkeys by Chip Kidd. And the students would read an excerpt from this. Basically, they would be sent out, hypothetically, out to Route 35, and all they would have is a Sharpie and a piece of cardboard with them, and they would have to try and hitchhike back to school. If a car passed the first time and picked them up, they would get an A. If it passed the second time, they get a B and C. The ones you see here that don't work, I talk to them a lot, are the ones that have money on them. They kind of seem scammy, and I told them, you know, no one's going to pick you up if you, like, say free money or something like that. They'll think you're going to kill them. So this is a Troy Anthony Davis project. Troy Anthony Davis was on death row. He was executed in 2011. He supposedly killed a white cop in Georgia. There was no DNA evidence. 7 of the 11 witnesses recanted their testimony, and they impacted the shooter. Here's the book cover. I just want to read you an excerpt from Troy's last words as these play. I'd like to address the McPhail family, let you know, despite the situation you are in, I'm not the one who personally killed your son, your father, your brother. I'm innocent. The incident that happened that night is not my fault. I did not have a gun. All I can ask is that you look deeper into the case so that you really can finally see the truth. I ask my family and friends to continue this fight for those about to take my life. God have mercy on your souls, and may God bless your souls. So these are book These were sent out as Troy Anthony Davis. His mom wrote a book about this incident, and there's book clubs all across the United States. My students made posters for that particular community book project. You can see there's a bunch of different photos, I think, that make up Troy on the right of many different people. Refugee project. Let me just read this by Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers. When I was a boy and I would see scary things in the news, my mother would say to me, look for the helpers. You'll always find people who are helping. So this project, brief, basically the students had to make a poster that was going to go over to Muslim countries and also work in the United States to kind of bring a connection between those two cultures, communities, and kind of, things are starting to deteriorate, and we wanted to bring that connection back. So here, you can see this one. Flip my sheet here. But you can see with this one, it is basically, can you see, can you help, it says on these. And you can see that on the left, people think of us as having guns as the United States, and on the right, healthcare. The last project I'll show is for Paris, as Je suis Charlie. Was a slogan created by art director Joachim Racine. This slogan was adapted after the massacre that occurred at the newspaper Charlie Hebdo. You are to make a design in response to this. You have, again, they only had 1 hour and 50 minutes on every single one of these projects. You can see with this one, basically a big grenade, and then the megaphone as freedom of speech is kind of being blown apart, but it can speak at the same time, if that makes sense. So these ones, this one here, I'll end on this one, is the pencil gun. So with all these issues going on since November, you can possibly think what my next assignment might be. I want to teach students that words and images are weapons for good, that perhaps they can change the world. Thank you.
That was sober stuff. Another round of applause. That was cool.